Hey guys, what's going on? This is Big Bluff Sync, aka BBZ for BBZ Staking, and we just had a bunch of interesting hands go on in the 1K and the 500, and we're just going to cover, I think, 3 of them. There were quite a few interesting hands. We're going to cover 3 of those hands really quickly in the replayer, and then we're going to shut this off. So let's get into it. So let's find the first one. So this is the first interesting hand that takes place. Okay, so we have King Queen suited. We make standard raise first in. We get 3-bet to a pretty large sizing. Big blind cold calls. It's an interesting spot for him to cold call. I don't know how strategically advantageous that is with a wide range of hands. It's not something I really am a huge fan of. I understand how it works. I know what hands go in, but I'm not sold that it's like a great idea to like try to navigate this hand. Basically, he allows me to overcall, where when he 4-bets, he doesn't allow that option. There's a lot of advantages to 4-betting that I don't really want to get into, but I'm not a fan of this line. I know he's a smart player. He's really solid, but again, I'm not a huge fan of the cold call here. So we overcall with our King Queen suited. We catch a flop with Queen 10-3, Buck 21 checks. We check as well, and the in position player checks back. Turn pairs the 10 of spades, and this is an interesting card for a few reasons. One of the reasons it's an interesting card is I don't really define the cutoff 3-bet range here as being very dense 10x. I also don't define the cold call as being very dense 10x either. I don't define the cold call here as being that dense suited hands, with the exception of like maybe ace jack and ace queen and king queen suited. So I don't think he has flushes very often. Buck 21, this is one of the problems with his flat. I don't think he has flushes very often. I don't think he has trips ever. I think that this player has flushes sometimes, but not that often, because he probably bets the flop. I think this player has 10x rarely based on his 3-bet. And so the only player that can really actually have any coverage of any of the nut portions of this board texture is actually me. And I think that does a couple things. One, I think it allows me to bet a little bit larger than you might expect from this hand. 2, it allows me to bet this hand because I don't really have to worry about getting raised, because they just don't have compositions to support a raising strategy here. So I can bet with kind of impunity on a texture like this, knowing that I'm uncapped 10x and flushes, and knowing that they're gonna have a really tough time dealing with that. And that's gonna allow me to both scale up bet sizing and plug in bets for protection, kind of like that, which is kind of what this is. So we do bet, and we don't have to be too small with sizing. We don't much bigger than I think, not that this is huge, but bigger than I think someone might have otherwise expected based on the situation that we're in. We get 2 faults. Okay, we just 3-bet the king jack suited. All right, so that was one of the really interesting hands. Let me just go back a couple. This is a really interesting spot where I actually don't know the right answer, and so we're going to just touch base on it. I think it's really close. I think it's really cool. So we get, raise, call, and ace X in these types of situations, it just doesn't play great as an overcall. These players are both going to dominate my ace 9. They're going to have like ace 10 or ace jack a lot. Likewise for the opener. Basically like this hand doesn't make straight draws, it doesn't make flush draws. It just doesn't really do anything in multi-way pots that's like exciting. So I opted to squeeze with this hand because folding it blocks pocket 9s, it's got an ace kicker, I've got an ace in my hand, I've got outs against all of the pairs, like blah blah blah. Basically it's just like reasonable to squeeze with. So I squeeze. We get folds to the small blind, who ends up calling, and he's got a really tough call. He's got the weakest range. He's very, very capped. He's gonna have like, a bunch of queen jack suited and king queen suited and things. Given my sizing, I actually think he's gonna have a hard time flatting hands like 10-8 suited or queen 10 suited or king 10 suited. So I think that this range gets really dense, like queen jack suited, king queen suited. I don't think he's flatting very many offsuit combos, and then like pocket pairs. So we get to the flop on 10-9-5, 2-tone. I do think that he's got a lot of draws, but I'm not really sure that he's got much else. I mean, I'm sure he can have pocket 5s or something, but he checks, we bet, he calls. I did expect him to have a raising range on a flop like this. I expect him to raise pocket 5s at least sometimes. I expect him to raise 10-9 if he did have it. I'd expect him to raise that on a board texture like this one. He should probably just be slamming it if he has like ace 10 suited, but he might not do that. So the turn brings in the second flush draw. And this is really a really interesting situation where maybe I should bet 40K. Maybe I should check, maybe I should jam. But I just don't really believe, personally, that he's got that much of anything other than I think he's extraordinarily dense, like queen jack and king king jack suited. And that could be a misunderstanding of his range, but I just think that I just have a really hard time finding anything else that he's really gonna have. So I opted for an option that I kind of struggle with, from like a pure bet sizing perspective. Like I kind of struggle with this being like the best answer with like a middling pair type hand, but I just don't define his range as having much in the way of top pair. And I think he's got like lots of combo draws, and they all have something like, let's say something like 20 outs, something around there. So they're going to have, you know, close to 40%-ish equity, which means that like they're going to call, they're going to call any bet size and be like kind of correct to have done so. And it's really tough to like bet 40K and think that that's like going to be your best answer. I think that forcing, you know, if I can force king jack of spades or something to a fold with a pair of nines, I think that's really advantageous. I think it's a really advantageous play for my range. I obviously have jacks and queens here that need to bet for protection and get value. And so like this, I think this play makes sense when I have the blockers that I do have, and etc. But I think it's really close. I don't know the best answer, so I think it's a super interesting one. I'll probably run it later with some solvers and do some more work to figure out exactly how this should look. It's a tough spot because he's really challenged with his call to begin with. So he ends up folding, which I think is a great result because I think that he has tons of equity against my hand, like, you know, close to half the pot. So if he folds close to, and if he folds, that's great. If even though I think some people might, it's just not an intuitive situation. It's really interesting, and I think we'll try to find one more. I think there was one more hand that we just played. This one, yeah. So you get Jack 10-9 two-tone, and big blind checks to me, which is what he's supposed to do. I proceeded with a 15% bet, I believe, roughly, and 13% bet, I guess. This is a bet size that puts a lot of pressure on this player's range on a texture like this one, because this player is going to have such an aggressive two-bet. It's difficult. I basically use this player as leverage against the player that's in position here. It's kind of complicated. I don't want to explain how the concept works too much. I just kind of want to get through the hand. So we use this really small bet size, which I think is an interesting one from out of position here. He calls. I think that kind of caps him at the margin, but this is obviously not a card that I really want to continue betting on. So we check. He bets small. We call. I think it's very clean. I don't think you want to get into two betting, so I'm not going to do that. And we check the river, and he checks back a hand like queen jack. So okay, so hopefully you guys found these hands interesting. You can find more of this type of analysis on BBZstaking.com. We have videos there. You can check us out on Facebook at BBC Staking. You can check us out on Instagram. You can check us out on Twitter. We definitely hope you guys do so. And thanks guys for checking this out. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time and good luck. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.